was a man that traveled through the land, a carpenter true and brave. He said to the rich, give your goods to the poor, and they laid Jesus Christ in the grave.
I asked Merle Haggard if he would sing an old Woody Guthrie song called Jesus Christ. He did, and he made up some of his own verses. Well, thank you very much for that response. You're the first Detroiters to see this movie. And you are amongst the first Americans to see that Roosevelt footage, which had been lost for 65 years. Wow. No American ever got to see it. It was ended up. It was in a box in South Carolina, and we found it. And I'm so happy that the public is going to be able to hear that for the first time. That 65 years ago, we had a president who had this vision of how the country should be. And so, of course, obviously, my hope is that President Obama will be the Roosevelt of this century. So, and enact that vision. And of course, you saw the one scene that was actually in this building, in the Marriott, right? It's part of the Ren Cen here. Right. On election night, huh? Well, you know, it's really weird. It's so weird to be standing in here.
At the Renaissance Center.
Out there. Well, they wouldn't let me in a couple hours ago because the press wanted to come in and interview me while you were watching the movie. And so General Motors apparently had sent down the word that I was not to be allowed in the building for my own premiere. And
wow.
I didn't get any press with me. And so we had to go and rent a room across the street, not at this Marriott, but at the hotel across the Jefferson. Then I was allowed to walk back across the street and come in here as long as there were no cameras or press with me. Because they didn't want that shot, I guess, of me walking to the GM building. But here I am! First time I'm in a General Motors headquarters, but it's only to show a movie. Well, I've been overjoyed since last November 4th. That to me was a big breath of fresh air blown in through the window. And I remember going to vote that day. My wife and I, we went to the polls, and I saw Barack Obama's name down on the ballot, and I just started to cry. Seriously, I was like cried in the voting booth. I couldn't believe that this man's name was on this ballot. I was going to vote for him, and there was a good chance in a few hours he'd be president of the United States. And we already have a better shot because we have somebody with a moral and ethical core to himself. This is a person who comes from the working class, raised by a single mother and grandparents, lucky enough to go to Harvard, leaves Harvard, could have made a lot of money, instead decides to go to Chicago. Oh, and by the way, on his way there, changed his name back to Barack. Not exactly the move of a politician, or somebody who thought he was going to run for office. So I admire him greatly, and I have a lot of hope that he's going to pull this off. I don't necessarily agree with some of the things he's done, obviously. I wish the health care plan was all the way instead of half the way, and the reason why his base isn't out there massively supporting him and being as loud as the right wing is on the other side is because it's hard to get excited about something that isn't going to provide universal health care for all of our citizens. It's a half measure, and so he's kind of out there alone. I feel bad for him. It looks like nobody's got his back, and we need to have his back. We need to be out there supporting him and trying to get the things that we need to get. And it reminds me of this woman who said this famous scene where a woman comes up to Franklin Roosevelt a couple years after he was elected, and she said, "Where's our Social Security? You promised Social Security. Where's our Social Security?" And he says, "I'm going to give you Social Security. You're going to have to make me do it." He said, "Because I got the banks against me, I got the corporations against me. The only way this is going to happen is if you and the American people make me and Congress do this, because it will not happen on its own." And that's what happened. I mean, people rose up and said this is what they wanted, and regardless of all the grief that Roosevelt went through, it passed. So we need that kind of vim and vigor right now. Who in here thought Mandela would ever be out of prison, let alone the president of South Africa? Or who ever thought in your lifetime you'd see the Berlin Wall come down? Right. Or if I had stood here 3 years ago and said to you, you know, we're going to elect a black guy as president of the United States in 3 years, you'd look at me like, what are you smoking up in Flint? So I believe that the impossible can happen, and that basically we are good at our core, and we just kind of get messed up, and a lot of people get screwed up by a lot of things, including money, and doesn't always get as good as we hope it would be. But you know, I don't feel like giving up, because I have these examples of seeing that change can occur. But again, it can't just be one filmmaker or one guy running for president. I mean, it really has to be a movement of people. I'm just looking out here and I noticed someone who's the former sheriff of Wayne County, now the current chief of police here in Detroit. I didn't mean to imply that you were breaking the laws. It was a euphemism, because I know you follow the law. And actually, it's so good to see someone like you in a position like this, and all the good that you can do. Please, a warm round of applause for the police chief, the new police chief here in Detroit. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to take a minute to acknowledge one of my staff people who worked really long and hard on stopping the foreclosures, Kate Benamy right here, who in a strange twist of fate, once I left to become the police chief in Detroit, has now been summarily dismissed from her job, and next month may be facing the same kind of foreclosure issue. So the world can really spin around, but she's a great lawyer. We're working on some things now, but she was the one doing the nuts and bolts, holding up hundreds and hundreds of foreclosure sales for me on a regular basis, and I just had to acknowledge her.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Anyways, so next question. Yes, ma'am, over here.
Maybe it's because I have yet to really dive into corporate America, the young still, but I still don't really get that they can take out a life insurance policy.
She said, I still don't understand how a company can take out a life insurance policy on an employee without telling them, name themselves the beneficiary, and collect on them if they die early. Collect big if they die really early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is legal. Because of this lawyer's work, though, he's got Walmart to stop, and he's pushed for, and a few states now have made it illegal. But it should be a federal law. It should not, just shouldn't be allowed to exist. And it's ghoulish. It should offend all of our sensibilities. And it sort of begs the larger question of, if the company can really benefit by us dying before our time, not that there would ever be any conspiracy to do this, but if a company doesn't provide health insurance, for instance, for an employee, the statistics show those employees will die before their time, before other people who have health insurance. If they have unsafe working conditions, et cetera, et cetera. So, in a sick way, it's to the benefit of the company that we are somehow even harmed while we're there working for the company. And it may not be till later that we pay the price for that, but I know it's crazy, but you know, when I make these films, I want to bring you information that you're not being told by the nightly news, and so I give you the vignettes of pilots working for United and American Airlines being paid as low as $16,000 a year, children thrown into the juvenile home because we privatize these things now, and people take a buck off it. So yeah, all those things are true, and that's what goes on.
May I ask a quick follow-up?
Yeah.
Do you expect anyone to go to jail? For instance, employers have access to health information of employees, so is it possible that they would find out that someone would have a life-threatening illness and then take out an insurance policy?
Well, I believe one of the people that we interviewed, in her lawsuit, in their discovery, they have found that perhaps the employer knew that he had cancer, and then it did. So he's also defrauding the insurance company.
Exactly.
I mean, the company is also defrauding, when the insurance company finds out, they're not going to like that either.
Thank you very much.
One last question. Sure, a lot of people appreciate it. Yes.
I just wanted to ask, because it's not possible that the former President Bush could have been the person pulling the strings when all of this was happening? Who was the devil in Washington while this was going on?
I mean, I think we know that for 8 years, Dick Cheney was president of the United States. And I think they're pulling me out of here to go to the next screening here. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.